Hey, this is Todd Smith here from 360 Converge with a great friend, Dan Moore, president of VistaDash. Also, best-selling author. Get More or Do More, Get More is the actual title of the book. I just think it's more of everything. I do have one question real quick before we jump in here. How did you come up with the title of the book? I want to know, was it your wife who came up with the title? Was it your kids who came up with the title? Or did you just have the midnight epiphany that says, it's Do More, Get More, because I'm Dan Moore? What happened?
Yeah, the title came up a few different ways because there was all kinds of different titles along the way, but it was funny. It happened, Lisa Copeland happened to be visiting. She was at the house, and Kelly and I were sitting at the table, and, a glass of wine or two, and then boom, Do More, Get More.
Okay, I knew it had to be in there, man. I was just really curious. So
Yeah. No, it was a fun journey to get to the title.
So, man, look, so much has changed in the last bit, and I want to cover some interesting stuff and questions because I love your perspective. You always have cool insight, and I know we go back and forth a ton on everything and make fun of tons of stuff in the industry, kind of normal, and then, take hard questions and input of stuff. And today I get to work from I came to my office. I got my electric skateboard ready to go home really fast and not touch anything. I think one of the interesting things, and we were just touched on before we started, was the narrative changing online and going through these iterations. So what do you think about that? Like, everyone talking about certain different things. Like, in the beginning, it was like, what is this disease? What's it mean for us, I assume? And then it's like, okay, now we know this disease. How's it going to jack us up? And, people are out there still saying, traffic's great. We're still doing stuff. And then, then it's doom and despair week of, oh my gosh, this is impacting us. We're furloughing employees. We're firing employees, good employees. Like, people, I'm talking to guys that are letting guys go that have been with them 25 years, right? Just because. Yep. And then it's little bright hope. We've now applied for paycheck protection, government SBA money. So what do you think? I mean, that kind of brings us up to now. What's next week? Where are we going?
Yeah, it's funny. I think we should have a curve on just where the emotional state of business is, right? Because, I mean, there's logic and emotion, and obviously it's very blurry right now, because there's so many factors. And I think, too, that some people are losing sight on, especially in our industry, it's, hey, I've got something to sell you. Hey, I've got something that's going to help you. And it's like, you got to take a second to understand where the person is, where the company is, because I think for the, to your point, I think you said it great. It's like, hey, this happened, right? We identified, hey, we've got some kind of pandemic. Now what does this mean? We're comparing it to the flu, H1N1. Oh, it will just blow over. And then all of a sudden, in the history of this, how can anybody have the answer when we've never experienced anything like this?
No.
I mean, you and I are data geeks. I just go off the simple fact of how many times has Disney shut down their parks in the how many years they've been out? I think, what are they, 75 plus years? No, they went higher. I think they did 100, didn't they?
No, they're not that old. But yeah, I mean, they came apart, I think, in the 60s, early, like late 60s.
It was like maybe one or two times, like something about World War II and one other thing. 9/11 didn't even shut them
down. No. So
they're completely shut
down. I mean, hurricanes only shut them for hours a lot of times while the hurricane passes.
Correct.
But other than that, this stuff stays open. So
so that's the state of things, right? I mean,
the shutdown of the United States in and of itself is like historic, right? So
correct.
I'll be telling my son Finn, you don't really know what it was like for the world to shut down and pause, like having this dramatic pause for a while. And specifically in our business, I noticed that there's all these rippling effects that we don't really understand what's going to happen, right? Like, I talked to Todd Caputo earlier this week. He's like, used car market. What's a used car worth today? And I'm like, I don't know. You tell me. Auction reports. He goes, yeah, well, when normally, I go to an auction, 70,000 cars are sold. Now 3,000 are sold. You can't really put real numbers on cars. So I was like, Well, that creates a whole dilemma in itself, because what happens when they come back online and the prices are dramatically different than dealers are trading in cars today at? What about all the lease returns? What does that mean? And the backup.
Right.
What about all the rental fleets and the backups? And all these cars are going to hit the market whenever we sort of come back online. It's like that pent up like thing. It's just going to explode, except the guys in Florida. It's always Florida. That somehow 3,500 cars caught fire. The rental fleet. Oops.
My bad.
So that story, I was like, wonder how that one happened. So
yeah, well, but that's the thing too. Used car market, right? Wholesale. If wholesale's saying, hey, listen, right now we're down, prices are down like 15%, right? So vehicle going across the block are down 15%. What does that say for retail?
Right.
And then I'm looking online and I'm going and talking to some of the dealers, right? That, I mean, hey, I'm always happy to help. And they're like, I'm like, how's your used car inventory? What are you doing? And they're like, oh, we're just doing the same thing we've been doing. So you haven't adjusted in your pricing? No.
Yeah.
I mean, look at CarMax sent the signal. How many did they just furlough this week?
Oh yeah.
That was a big number. I think it's like 7,000, wasn't it?
7,000 or 8,000, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big number. That's a big signal, meaning, hey, things are screeched. And it was funny. I saw a commercial. I'm like, oh, they've got a nice COVID commercial going on. And then boom, the next thing is this. And I'm like, ooh, okay. We're definitely sending two messages here.
Look, this brings up a really good point. And what really interests me, like, and I believe this fully. And I'm curious about your opinion though. I see what's going on, right? And businesses are in financial distraught, tons of them.
Yep.
But your employees, how you treat your employees right now is probably more impactful, I believe, than even the business itself, because these are the people that make the business work and
100%.
Achieve results. And look, I understand people, you have to furlough people, you have to eliminate if you don't have the money. I totally understand that. I mean, I'm in the same boat with my startup. And I deal with these challenges every single day, and it's very hard. But, I mean, what do you think about the messaging that these companies are sending to their workforces?
So here's the tricky part to this whole thing, right? And this is the fundamental challenge I think we suffer, and it's been set, even our political arena, if you have today, is that kind of, if you will, almost to some extent, the fake news statement, meaning, a lot of these companies have furloughed, but hey, what's not being said is they're paying the benefits, they're offsetting the difference. There's other things happening, but everybody's so quick to put a bullet in a company because they let go so many people. The question is what were the stipulations in that? Yes, there are some companies that have done some things that I go, man, they just cut bait and ran. All the while sitting there telling you how much money they have or how much money this, or like, there's good and bad in everything. And I think we need to kind of hit the timeout button, stop jumping into the, hey, let me get into the squandering on social media and torch some company for letting their people go, when the full circumstances, sometimes can't be divulged. Number one. Number two is there's a whole different story, because I've talked to from my car dealer friends to my vendor friends, as far as that are running their companies. They're like, we're in this situation, but some of them have done the right things. Like, hey, we had to do this, but we're doing these following things. So it's not a complete cut and run.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky one, because I think that, no one's ever set up for crisis management.
Not like this.
Crisis, no, not like this. And crisis PR, meaning, you're trying to save money, so you're not going to go spend money on someone to help craft the message so that, you try and stabilize your business. But if you're making big cuts, you've got to lay the groundwork, because someone's going to run with it. I mean, look how public quickly AutoNation, CarMax, everybody's making some of these big moves. Someone's got to be behind that, trying to get that message out there and make sure that, hey, you are trying to do things the right way. Hey, there's an opportunity on the other side of this. So it's a challenge, I think, for everybody. And that's what I think, for me, kind of frustrates me when I see online. I'm like, man, you don't know really what's going on. You're quick to just kind of say something without getting all the data. And even some of the data we're getting isn't even right, because the whole thing with the COVID and this flat line and curves, it keeps moving. Like,
yeah, I think that's like an ever changing, like, it's a bullseye you'll never hit, because
correct.
the data is continuing to evolve. And then the nuances of marketplaces, right? I mean, the impact in like a New York City versus the impact in Iowa, or the impact in
Arizona. I mean,
Montana.
To some extent, Arizona for a lot, like just now is starting to tighten things up. Just now,
right?
Where everybody else is tightened up. So it's interesting to see how everybody's operating, and there's different levels. I mean, New York. I mean, man, they're just getting hammered.
Yeah,
like
that's ground zero for this at this point. I think they're going to be the poster child of lessons we can learn to not let that happen in other communities around the U.S. And look, they have disadvantages, huge public
population, dense
systems,
area,
dense population. I think they didn't get out in front of it, so poor messaging, and it cascaded so fast, so quickly, and it was very hard to get their hands around. And I think they'll get through it. New York is probably one of the hardest, like, personality people. I mean, I grew up in New Jersey. I feel the people up in the Northeast are just very resilient. They'll find.
They just got grit, man. I mean, there's something about a New Yorker. They just got grit.
So let's talk a little. So data, man, right? So and I want to get back to the original question. So what comes next week? So money now is hitting some dealers' accounts, right? I think.
So you're starting to hear that, right? So you're hearing, hey, if you kind of take it in simplicity, you're going to see the shift from kind of more reactive to going to more proactive. Meaning now that we're kind of settling in, right? We've got a plan. We understand that we've got some backing, some substantial backing, and we can go back to some, I call it the new norm of operations, right? And because everybody's like, well, I can't wait to get back to normal. Yeah, well, we're never going to see normal, okay? So everything's going to be a new normal. Even when we come out of this, there's going to be new habits, new forms. We're going to have new normals. But I think next week we start to see kind of that, okay, it's time to start moving the business forward within the operating structures that we're allowed based on each state.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's crazy. Like in Pennsylvania, not selling cars, you can sell guns. I'm like, okay. I feel bad.
They deemed hair salons here in Arizona essential for a minute until everybody had a complete tissy.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, hair salons. All the old retired people, man. Every week you got to go in and get your dome done, man.
So again, you've got a lot of different challenges, and I think that the best advice, or at least kind of what I would say I know is that you've got to take the data that you have in front of you for your state and figure out how you can operate in that. Consult with your legal. Hey, what's the real hard line here? I mean, states like Michigan, obviously they press pretty hard. I know some of the guys out there have met with their, local, senators and congresspeople.
Yeah, they're opening up Monday. Yeah. Michigan's going to be back with L's on Monday. So
so there's some good, again, the dealer community is doing a good job of rallying. Alex Vetter's been at like the front of just pushing. So hats off there. I mean, when you got the cloudofcars.com, you can kind of go in and have big conversations with all the different people that you need to move some stuff along, or at least get some awareness. So that's fantastic.
Yep, I agree.
So, I mean, but next week's going to be interesting. I think next week we start to see hey, what's next statement? How do we move forward statements? Not so much of that kind of harboring, isolation of I've just got to go inward. Now I think people are going to start coming outward more and trying to figure out how to get back to what we would say the new norm is.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be new norm. It's like a rubber band. Like once you stretch it out, it never goes back to its original shape, right? It'll somehow be changed because of circumstances, surroundings, and environment, right? So that's going to be interesting. I'm excited. I do believe I posted something like, this is the opportunity time, man. Smart businesses are going to have to look at this, and smart dealers specifically, and smart people who work in sales in auto have to look at this as, okay, how do I roll up my sleeves? How do I become an effective asset in this time, right? And dealerships have to rethink a little of their sales process. I mean, not really though. I think about like digital, this term retailing, it's been around for years. It's not a new thing. There's lots of nuances in it. I wrote that title to logistics because I said, it's not just go through and it's magic like Amazon and shows up. You have a trade-in, you have to move inventory around. How does that happen? How do you manage people who aren't in your dealership to remotely do these services? How do you keep them safe? How do you keep the customer safe? Like, there's a lot of unseen things inside there. And I think you mentioned earlier, you have a lot of states that still have wet signature requirements. How does that play into effect? They can't do everything online. And
even some of the laws, like you said too, right? Like, hey, if you sign paperwork in the house, you actually have a longer extension on being able to return that
rights
vehicle.
of rescission. Yeah. So New Jersey was bigger on that. I think it was called like the Rainbow Vacuum or Kirby Vacuum Law or something that, back in the day, the sales guy would just show up at the wife whose home's house, right? This is back in I guess the 40s and 50s, and sell them like a $3,000 vacuum cleaner. And, people would be like, oh my God, how did you spend that money for a stupid vacuum? And then the law went into effect that said, if you're sold and signed paperwork in your house, the rights of rescissions are different than if you're actually in the business, right? Because if you've taken the time to go to the business, you're aware of your surroundings and the deal
and what you're
a
doing,
little bit differently than, hey, I just hyped you up in your house and sold you a super expensive vacuum cleaner that you're going to make payments on like a car for 80 months or 84 months, right? So.
Well, and what's interesting too is this is that point of awareness too, in the sense of, you've got dealers moving forward on getting, being deemed essential. It's like, now take it a step further. You've got the ear, you're making headway. If you're one of the states that you have to have a wet signature, it's like, now's the time to kind of say, hey, we need to have a conversation about this because this furthers this point here.
Right.
And it's interesting though, and it's funny because if you think about buying a home, you can e-sign for a multi-million-dollar home.
Yeah.
Like, boom, done. Sign, I own it.
Because the mortgage companies had the muscle and the banks had the muscle to go in and change the rules, regulations, and laws requiring documentation. And this might be that chance for this automotive state associations to now go in to ensure a better process for not only the consumer, but as well as the dealer. I mean, to reduce paperwork and streamline it is at everyone's advantage, I think, at this point. So.
Correct. I mean, if you're, sitting there talking about green new deals and everything, how much paper do you want to print to buy a car? Yeah,
you shouldn't print any, right? You should be able to just sign and go.
But I'm just saying, like, I mean, there's so many ways to kind of set the trap to get the objective done, because you can piggyback on all the different hot points. But nonetheless, this is that opportunity where you find the chink in the armor. The new norm is going to be the new norm. Whatever you're doing right now, you have to understand, you don't get to pull it back when this is done. You've created a habit. So you can't be like, oh, I'm not doing digital retailing now. You got to come back to the dealership like the way we've always done it. No.
Oh, that's going to happen.
It's going to happen. But I'm saying, like, and then watch your reviews, I think everybody's got to take caution in the sense of the things that you're doing. In your mind, you may think they're temporary, but the consumer is going to think otherwise. So there is that paradigm shift that we have to think about. And even, just think about the habits. There are literally going to be different habits that come out of COVID, meaning I'm curious to watch the ride share. Really curious.
Yeah, like, do you want to keep getting in someone's ride that you don't know who was in before? And that's weird.
Just think of
Airbnb. Like, do you want to stay in a place? What's the new COVID-19, like, sanitizing a unit before I stay in it? Are you going to sanitize an Uber after every ride?
I'm just saying, these are the things, and And to some extent, yes, people are going to want to go out and eat a meal because they've been trapped.
Yeah.
Yes, to some extent, you're right. But the other problem that you're going to see is that some people are going to be like, hey, I'll do that, but not near the frequency I used to. You have people that have families that like all they do is eat out.
Yeah.
This is forcing that point of where everybody kind of goes, hey, they start eating in, they go, oh man, look at all the money I'm saving. Oh man, like, we're making new recipes. That's great. Like, there are things that are going to happen naturally the longer this goes on. So there's the habit side of this that we have to equip ourselves for. What do we become more accustomed to?
That's a
Right.
total point. I'm just looking. I have this book above me, which is great. Have you read Tiny Habits yet?
No. I'm going to have to get that one.
Okay. BJ's great guy, Stanford guy. This is the guy who I've talked to him a few times. Super nice guy. Every guy from Dropbox, all those guys have taken his class. Like any big .com guy have gone through BJ's program at Stanford, and it's all about creating like addictive use of applications, right? Like using gaming, how to keep people engaged, and it's fulfilling needs, right? It comes down to, one, help people do what they already want to do, and two, help them feel good about doing that, right? I mean, you accomplish that, everything changes. But it's a good book. But in thinking about habits, definitely our habits will shift now because of this, and especially with car buying. I think you're going to see some changes there, which will be interesting. It's also interesting, from the dealers I've spoken to, and I'd love your thoughts too, they really have responded similar to 2008 and 9 and did a mass retraction of marketing spend right away.
Oh yeah. I mean, right away. I mean, obviously, we're basically a marketing intelligence platform, so we're seeing all of that.
Yeah. Tell me about it, man.
Yeah. Everybody hit the retract really quick, right?
Yeah.
And the struggle there is that everybody's saying where the consumer is right now. And in some cases, they're trying to point out paid search. They're trying to point out social. They're trying to point out all these different, hey, there's still consumers there. And it's funny, then there's the knock on the third parties. We still have this complete love-hate relationship with third parties. And it's kind of funny. I mean, I know your points on it. I mean,
listen, look, lead generation is lead generation, right? Now, do I believe lead generation should evolve a little? Yeah, I feel.
Oh, I think lead gen should evolve.
Like,
we're the consumers.
Right. It's wherever the consumer, look, if the consumer raises their hand, how that's generated to me isn't different. But as a dealer, as a salesperson, I would like more information about that particular lead so I could have a better conversation.
Correct.
And I could be more compelling in my sales pitch than I've received a name and an email address and I'm told, hey, go follow up. And
that problem still just lacks with the fact that nobody ever wanted to update the ADF file. So I mean,
dude, me and Metter had the conversation like days ago about Star and all that junk, and here just like insurmountable wall against the CRMs. They just
the CRM doesn't want to readjust, and it sucks, right? I mean, it kind of falls into your hand quite nicely. Because I know you're building the mousetrap that makes that a much better experience.
Well, look,
it's long overdue.
The more
it is data.
The more data you have, the better conversation you're gonna have. If I know, like David Kane sent me an intake sheet. Hold on, let me find it. So he sent me an intake sheet yesterday, right? And I love this because it just resonated with me because I was like, oh, he goes, we ask our clients to ask customers these questions, right? And I was like, oh, I have all this. I have most of this data. You don't need to ask. It's like, do they own an animal? Like, what are their hobbies? Occupation, easy to grab, right? Recreation stuff. Motivation, okay, that's a little bit different. Animals, interests, all that stuff is easy to find with their social behavior, their web behavior, all that data. And it's so rich and graphed at this point that you could use to have a better conversation. The more you know about a customer, you can then create a better messaging to that customer as well, instead of, hey, Dan, saw you put a lead in on the new Tahoe. When do you want to come drive it?
Yeah.
I think you could change that conversation. I think that's much more powerful. But yeah, he sent me that sheet and I was like, this is cool, man. I was like, we can automate some of that now. And I just want all the companies to do that. It has nothing to do with me. I feel like
no. I mean, hey, it's all about serving the dealers.
Right. Let's make it easier.
Yes.
Let's give salespeople the right tool. Like, what's that saying or that story? Two guys are in a tree chopping competition. The one guy just starts going at it, no rest. The other guy chops. 15 minutes later, comes out, sharpens his axe, goes back, chops it down in half the time. And the other guy goes, how did he do that so fast and took all those breaks? And he's like, he sharpened his axe, right? And I think we're at that time where we need more in data intelligence that is there. It is completely available. And we need to now leverage that. Just like I think what you're doing with VistaDash, that marketing intelligence helps us make better decisions, right? And actually make decisions instead of just looking at, another damn dashboard. You can look at something and go, hey, this is what's actually happening and this is how I should respond. Like I talked to a dealer the other day and, he retracted marketing, but he just shifted it and he went much heavier digital and what I mean, like digital into social, because he knows everyone's sitting in those platforms right now, scrolling all day. So
dude,
he's
Facebook Messenger is up 50%. Like lives are more than double. Like this, it's not rocket science, right? Like, I mean, and at the same point in time, dealers are retracting money, and it's like, if people are being honest, right, and trying to like leverage the dollar correctly for whether the dealer's doing it internally or somebody's doing it for them, dude, simple things, couple $100, dude, go, if your service drive is the only thing that's open, great, let's go get the email list for every opt-out there is, let's pump that into Facebook and let's go offer 10-20% off and go target that. Or, hey, if you've got your COVID statement, hey, we're open, here's a video of us cleaning the car and service, doing all that, great. How far are you willing to drive to go to a consumer? Okay, great, 35, 40 miles, great. Geo fence, $500, away you go. Like, no one's talking about and coming up with, hey, here are some ways, right? And I love the fact that Bob at Facebook put out the, hey, here's the free things you can leverage on Facebook. It's like, thank you, because there are free things.
I posted to that. I was like, why don't you give some creative examples? I was like, you have the resources. I was like, throw out a couple, hey, this is what it should look like. This is how to do it. I think sometimes we lack the next thing. It's easy to say, hey, take this, but it's nice to say, well, here's the steps to really implement it, right? Like, here's
and that's the part that I think
probably want to use something like this. Just change your name out, and you can start leveraging that, and then that usually to me seeds the mind to come up with new ideas from it. Some people need like that starting, like a kid, like riding a bike for the first time. You need the little push, right?
Oh yeah.
You don't need just the bike. You need the push. So
yes.
Yeah.
So and that's what you gotta do. Is you just gotta, you gotta push along, but understand that like there's just, it's not, you can't go back to the way you were doing it. You've got to think differently.
Yeah. I agree. So tell me, like, what's the data like in now in marketing? What are you seeing? Where are the pockets of opportunity? Like, if you put your retail hat on, go back in the dealership. Look, you're still open to sell. What do you do?
Yeah. So back in the dealership side of it, I mean, obviously, I'm going to go for low hanging fruit right now. I want my dollars to get me the end market shopper. I'm not worried about branding right now. I'm worried about action. Get me to action. So I play on connected TV because I know that the end market has basically shrunk, and I got to get to that specific target. So I can get a little bit, I can almost get precision, right? I can get right around that end market shopper with some good messaging.
Okay.
Obviously social media, 100%. Paid, I'm going to play in a couple different ways. I'm going to leverage paid for like the 84 month. Because everybody's searching for it. We know that, right? So I'm not worried about direct inventory. Like I'm going to do paid search on each exact model. I know used is kind of like sour right now. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at my pricing strategy, figure out if there's some opportunity. But with that, I'm going to leverage the third-party sites. Right now, I mean, I love the fact that they're helping the dealers out. Hey, here's a 50% reduction in your spend. Great. What package am I on, right? If I'm on a low package, how much does it cost for me to go to the premium package right now at 50% off? Like, you got to leverage the resources, right? And I'm not taking shots at anybody. I'm just saying, like, hey, leverage the field. You know, Facebook's like cost to enter is minimal right now. It's lower than anything. So you've got to figure out where those are, and you got to figure out, you know, your budget. Hey, what am I willing to spend during this time? And then you get a list of the things that that are the right places to go where the consumer is, and you go and get what that costs for each one of those, and you go, okay, here's my budget. What things match against that? Where do I want to go? And you've got to execute on that, and then hold people accountable and understand that you're going to have to move that strategy weekly almost, because we don't know where things are going to go. So one minute I'll be like, hey, connected TV. And it's like, I tell people all the time, I go, what I'm saying now is probably going to change in a week.
Right.
To some extent. Well, social, it's pretty consistent because the usage is just insane right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I see. Usage like Facebook stuff is just, Instagram, all that stuff is just through the roof, you know.
And it's the connection point. So the narratives and the stories, you know, I've had a buddy of mine at agency, Part Group Solutions. He sent me some of the videos that he cut for his clients. I mean, they're really good. I mean, when you want examples, I mean, there are people out there that have got some good examples of what they're doing, how they're trying to target the messaging. So, you know, it's out there. If you got, you know, if someone's hung up on it, man, reach out to me. I'm easy to get a hold of. I'll point you in the right direction. I literally feel like a marketing broker these days.
Yeah. Well, no, listen, that's good, right? So I feel like, you know,
you gotta help.
You have to find that norm. Like, what's going to be that thing that you need to implement today, right? And as you say, that's going to evolve in the next couple of weeks as you kind of come back, when the dealerships come back online, and how they can best, you know, get their hands around it today to start leveraging and, you know, communicating with customers effectively, right? So right. I also think going back into the dealer, this is probably one of the best times to clean up your data. You know, you have this like pause button to go back in, go in, pull all the people out of the CRM, dedupe all that data, update all the records, like clean up that information. So moving forward, you can have more effective marketing and spend less to execute it. So,
well, and that's it too. You got to look back too, because that was the other thing when we hit this, is people were going, oh my gosh, you know, they're looking at this current month and they go, you know, we're in the toilet. It's like, yeah, but look at the data, and I'm on the call. I'm like, yeah, I get it, but let's go look at the last 12 months. Let's look at year to date. Like, you're actually up.
Yeah.
So don't hit the, oh my God, like close the doors, the ship is sinking yet. Hold on one second. You know, there's some light here. Now let's figure out how do we leverage it, right? And that's the piece that I think that you know, I hope a lot of dealers get out of this is focus on you. Forget everybody else. Like we get, you know, too many times you get hung up on, well, Joe down the street, he's got this website, he's using this paid search company. I'm going to do what he does because he's selling more cars. Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it. I expose all the time. Like when you just look at your own data and when you watch your consumer shopping behavior on your website, what they're looking for, how they're navigating, and then you figure out what you need to plug and play to be successful, that's when you start winning on marketing. And it's not about, quantity, it's about quality. The problem is that the behavior is just spent, I've got all this co-op money, I have to spend it. So poof, shotgun, instead of going, hey, I do have all this co-op money, but how strategic can we be? How can we hold some people accountable, really measure what we're getting in turn, and go plus or minus on what our behavior is? Because again, you're still held hostage by your inventory.
Yeah.
You can go market your brand all day long. If you don't have the cars, nobody's coming.
No.
Sorry. Like, I mean, and we're shooting the marketing company, or we're firing our people, or we're getting all hung up on that when your allocation sucks. And that's the problem right now. So how do you address that and move it forward?
That's a good point. They're all good points, you know? look, I feel like
I spent all day looking at data. You know that.
I know, and that's sort of the question. It comes down, right? It's what does a dealer do today, right? It's and what he does today will be different than next week. But I mean, today is really about getting your processes in place that you can execute consistently, deliver consumer experience that's quality. Because to me, I'm always customer experience first and foremost. That's one thing I like about Vetter and Alex. He was like the first guy out of the gate trying to protect his consumer, the dealer's experience,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And that was a good side of that. And everyone else just went the discount route, and that's great too, in its own right. But sometimes it's nice to take a little personal involvement and touch to something we're doing. So
100%. I mean, the reality of it is that like I say all the time, I'm betting on the dealer, because without the dealer, there's none of us. Like, I mean,
yeah, dealers will get through this. I always said they're freaking resilient. I was one of them. Like, we'll figure out,
Agreed.
every one of us, we'll figure out how to do this, right? It might be ugly, but it'll get done. Cars will get sold. The business will change, and the dealers will change with it. They will adapt, because without adaptation, then obviously, you throw in the towel. But to me, the smart dealers, not even smart dealers in general, will all get through this. I feel that they'll get through it their own way, and the digital retailing to me is like hype right now. It does push the idea a little, kicking a can a little further down, I think.
It's pushing the forward thinking. Yeah, it's pushing forward thinking. I think that's great. But I mean, I think digital retailing is like using the word, you have to have an internet department. At the end of the day, it's about the consumer experience, and it's all lumped into that. How you communicate based on the way they want to be communicated, and how you can create an experience that's as seamless, right? Or as I like Ben Stock's analogy, as frictionless as possible.
Yeah.
That's what they're looking for. I mean, Amazon has set the standard of how we operate, right? I know everybody's tired of the Amazon beating of the drum, but I mean, guess who's weathering this storm pretty well?
Right? I think Amazon's doing pretty darn good during this, besides their little internal hiccups and safety and stuff. But overall, look, again, people are still buying stuff on Amazon.
Correct. Even though it says it'll be delivered sometime next year. I mean, they're still buying.
So true, man. So, well, cool. I'm glad I got to spend a few minutes with you today. It's always fun to catch up and talk about this stuff. And so here, parting question, right? So back with your dealer hat on, right?
Yep.
You have it, internet or BDC currently. You already had digital retailing, you're coming back online Monday. What's the first 3 things you do?
Rally my people, right?
Solid.
And what I'm saying when I rally my people is, hey, we are going to practice.
Yep.
Because we're not going to practice on our clients, right? You have in this type of situation, first impression matters. If you're not dialed in, you're going to lose. So It's people first. It's always people and process. That's what I'm starting with first. Are we ready to go for it? People, process. Then after that, I'm going to start checking balance. How do we reach the consumer? Are we have everything locked and loaded? Is our messaging right? And then third, I'm going to measure. And I'm going to measure in as near real time as I possibly can and watch to see trend behaviors. I'm going to watch how my people are performing, understand their metrics. And again, when I say I'm measuring, I'm not looking to beat anybody up, fire anybody. I'm looking to go, what are the impacts and what are we missing? Because maybe there's a broken piece in the process. Maybe my marketing's getting disconnected from where I'm at to where I'm landing. There are pieces that I need to pay attention to in real time to watch those ups and down trends. And then I'm going to adjust, because I do believe even if it's working, you should break it, because there's always something better you can do.
So that brings up, how much data do you need to feel confident that you see the trend unfolding?
Yeah. So for me, and again, this is just how I look at data, and everybody's got different opinions, but I'm going to tell you from my perspective, I look at data as I call waypoints to destination. For car business, the destination is service and sales, right? I want more ROs, and I want to sell more cars, right? So I'm looking at the frequencies along, meaning okay, great. Is my consumer engaged with my message and where I land them? Meaning, are they looking at multiple photos of the vehicle? Are they scheduling the appointment? Are they taking advantage of the offerings that we're sending out? I'm looking for that engagement to my messaging to see where I need to push and pull there. I'm also looking at the engagement to, great, I got you here, you're engaged. Did you convert to that next step? Meaning, did I move you along to, a form, a text, a chat, some type of click to call, some kind of action? I'm looking for that, right?
Yep.
And then from there, I'm looking at how did we respond, right? I think sometimes we get lost in the fact, and I still do this, which, shame on me. I still mystery shop stores because I'll get the call, especially right now, because I love this right now because I'm just helping anybody that wants help. So like, hey, message me, I love you. It's like, I look at it and I go, well, your problem isn't any of this. The problem is that nobody got back to me. Where's this going? And sometimes there's missteps. I mean, literally had a client that was doing social media. It was like, hey, it's not working. Like, we couldn't really figure out. So we put a little tag on the Facebook ad, right? Well, we found out the problem is that you're not getting leads in the normal, it's all coming via text. He's like, well, where are the text messages going? I go, I have to kind of ask you that question. Right? So
I will say one thing I got from my conversation with Todd Caputo was he literally transferred the phones to him. He became the centerpiece, and then he disseminates it to his team, the skeleton crew. And that resonated to me of like, dude, he's the captain of the ship, and he's going to know everything that's going on. And when you're on that front line like that, and you're talking to customers like that, and you're getting it, I think it'll be much easier to communicate that to your team on how to continue to create success from it. So.
Well, and that's a good example of what I would say real life, real time data, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is it scalable? Not in the long term, but the reality of it is, here's what that situation teaches. And this is the one thing I love about that, because I believe in that firmly, is sometimes you got to go get in the water. And the reason you got to get in the water is you got to figure out where it's broke, what's missing, right? Like, by taking the flow of calls, you go, this is you start to walk back your way into all of the disconnects. And then you go, okay, great. This is the process that stems from this, and I've got to execute it over here. And then now you can start going, well, now I can build phone routing, and it can round robin, it can do all this stuff, because technology can help make that more scalable. But you learn what you have to adjust and fix and where the holes are in your current process.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I think that this time really brings to light too, is there are a lot of owners, GMs, GSMs that are now getting, forced almost, if you will, to get even deeper in the water. And they're like taking it going, man, how do we measure this, man? Like, no wonder we have holes. We only have 10 guys and they're taking these calls, and there's like all these calls coming in, and no wonder we're missing, right? Like, we've got to have a better process in how that phone's getting picked up, or texts or chats or whatever it is. Like, there is something to be said about just jumping in and getting your hands dirty.
Yeah. This is the best time with the business paused and like volume down where the levels are. I think pretty much every dealer nationwide could take that path for the next week and be successful and have a greater understanding, knowing their experience, which they have, what to do to fix it and make it better coming out of this. I think my one goal for every dealer is listening to this and anything that I write or anything is come out of this stronger and better. Like, number one goal.
100%. And leverage the relationships. You're not in it alone.
Yeah.
There's guys like you and me and David Kane and Jonathan Dawes. I mean, there's lots of people out there that are here to help. And I know some of the times it's the back thought is how much it's going to cost me. Right.
Yeah.
And I tell you, nothing.
Yeah. Just nothing right now.
Phone message.
Take advantage of it.
Take advantage of it. Like, reach out to everybody. Is either A, doesn't have anything to do. Sorry. Yep. B, is betting on you. They're watching and wants to see you succeed. So they're willing to do whatever role. I mean, I've literally spent the last 3 weeks with my sleeves rolled up and deeper in the dirt, because again, not only bettering VistaDash or bettering the team or bettering myself, it's just trying to help.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I like two types of beer, Stella and Free. So, and right now there's a lot, there is some really good quality free stuff that I think dealers could take advantage of
100%.
to just help navigate current situations and all the different situations based on state and what's going on. So, no, it's good.
Oh no,
I really
you
appreciate
gotta
you taking the time today, man. It's always good
Oh, always,
to
man.
catch
Always.
up. So,
Absolutely.
all right, man. Hold on a second. Thank you again. So.